Hello everyone, in this video we're going to go over some of the basics of HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's a language used by web browsers to display documents and web pages. It can be used along with CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, as well as JavaScript to provide additional functionality and customization. So first I wanted to show you some of the basics of HTML syntax. So here we can see a very basic HTML document. And we can see lots of things enclosed within angular brackets. These are called tags, and tags are used to define elements within an HTML document. For example, we see here an opening tag for a paragraph, followed by the text of the paragraph, followed by the closing tag of the paragraph to say that this is the end of the paragraph element. We can also see this doc type HTML up here. This will be used at the beginning of every HTML document to let the web browser know that we are using the HTML language. So that's some of the basics of the syntax and how we will define some elements within HTML, but now we're going to code some of this ourselves. So first things we want to do is we want to go and create a new folder that will hold all of the HTML files for this project. So let's go to File Explorer, and I'm going to put this one on the desktop. You can put this file wherever you want, and you can name it whatever you want. Just make sure you remember where it is and what it's named. So I'm going to name this one HTML example. Doesn't really matter for this case. And now we need to open up the IDE of our choice. So I'm going to go ahead and use Visual Studio Code for this tutorial. You can use whatever you want. We recommend you use Visual Studio Code. Alright, so once we have VS Code opened, we're going to go ahead and open the folder we just created. So you can do that right here, or you can come up here into File, Open Folder, and then find the one we just created. Alright, so now that we have opened our folder that we just created within VS Code, we need to create the actual file that will contain the HTML. So we want to right click here, say New File, and I'm going to name this example.html. Now it shouldn't matter what you name it, just make sure it ends with .html, so it's actually an HTML file. Otherwise, name whatever you want. Alright, so now here we have our actual HTML file. This is where we are going to code our actual web page. So first we need to tell the web browser that we are using the HTML language, and we do that with an opening bracket, exclamation point, doc type, HTML, close. And now the web browser will know, okay, we are using HTML. Then we want to define an HTML element, so we can open another bracket, HTML, close it, and we can see that VS Code has automatically created a closing tag for the HTML. So we have an opening tag for HTML, a closing tag for HTML. And between between these two tags are where we're going to put all of the content of our HTML web page. So most pages will have a head, and you can see VS Code has made another closing tag for that automatically. So the head is going to contain things that will maybe reference a CSS style sheet to style the web page or some other external file. For the case of this tutorial, we are not going to put anything right here, but most web pages would have something here. And then we usually have a body right here. And we can see again we have an opening body tag and a closing body tag. So between these two tags, this is where we're going to have all of our content for the actual web page itself. For this tutorial, all the content is going to be right between these two tags. So now we can go ahead and actually start creating some actual elements for our web page. But first, maybe we want to see what is this web page we have created. So far, what do we have? Currently, it will be empty, but if we want to actually see this, we can right-click right here, assuming we have the LiveServer extension downloaded. It's very useful. It will let us see live updates of our web page every time we save the file. So we can right-click right here, click Open with LiveServer, and then right here we see this is our web page. It is currently empty. There is nothing on it. But let's go ahead and split this off. And now we can see both at once. So we can go ahead and close this File Explorer right here. We can collapse it. We don't need to see anything right here. We can do that by clicking this logo right here. If you wanted to open it again, click it again. If you want to close it again, click it again. Alright, so now we will be able to see live updates of our web page. So one of the first things we want to create would be a heading. This is a very common element within web pages. So we can create a heading element with an opening bracket, and then we can say H1, and then close the bracket, and then we will also need a closing tag after that. VS Code has automatically put it here for us. And within this, we can say whatever we want. And this will be our first heading, and the headings will decrease in size as the number increases with it. So if we were to have an H2, this would be slightly smaller. And if we Control S, or if we hit File Save, we can see a live update right here. So this is our first heading, and it is slightly bigger than the H2. If we were to have an H3, it would be even smaller. And so they will continue to get smaller up until H6. I believe after H6, they will not get any smaller. Yeah, we can see that's the smallest text that it will display. If you wanted to customize this further, you would need to implement CSS of some form. But that is how we will create headings. You need an opening tag for it, and then the text of your heading, followed by a closing tag of the heading to say this is the end of the heading. Alright, another element you might want to have in your web page would be paragraphs. And we can do this with an opening bracket P, close that, and then we will also need a closing tag that VS Code has automatically put in here for us. And within this, we can put whatever text we want for a paragraph. We Control S, and we can see that this is what the paragraph would look like. If we wanted to do another one, we would just open another one. And now you see I just did a capital P. HTML is not case sensitive, but it is good practice to not do capitals because it's just kind of ugly. But if you want to do it, go ahead. So we'll say this is another one. Alright, so that is how we will create paragraphs. And now you might think, well, this is very boring, very bland. How can we spice this up a little bit? So one way we might want to spice it up is we can add some color to this. And to do this, we would do right here in the opening tag of a paragraph, we would say style equals quotation marks color, and then whatever color you want. You can see there's some recommended ones here. There's a lot to pick from. We're just going to say hot pink. And we save that, and now we see this is a hot pink paragraph right here. If we wanted to style this one, we would say style equals color, and we can say blue for this one. Yeah, and if we wanted to actually pick a custom color, VS Code will let us do that. We can click on this little block that it creates right here, and then we can come in here and pick a different color. Let's do a green one, and we hit enter, and it automatically picks the RGB value that corresponds to the color we just picked. So if you wanted to manually pick the color that you want to have in your web page, you can use VS Code's feature right here to do so, or you can type color RGB and then pass in the 3 values that correspond to red, green, and blue for whatever color you want. So we're going to save this, and we should see a live update here. So now this paragraph is green. Alright, so that's how you can style some of these elements. This is referred to as inline CSS because it is styling the element. Normally, this is not how you will do this. You would usually use an external CSS file to style the whole page instead of doing it manually inline right here. It will make it more readable, and it will be much easier than picking out each individual element. You can generalize the customization with a CSS file. But that is how we create paragraphs and style them. This is referred to as an attribute right here. This is the style attribute. There are many attributes for different elements. Not all of them apply to the same elements, but they are used to create specifications and customizations for the HTML elements in a web page. Alright, moving on. So now another thing you might want to have in your web page would be something like a link. You might want to link to an external website. And we do this with a bracket A. And you will also need a closing tag. And then within this, you can put whatever you want. We could say this is a link. If we save this, and then we see, well, this is not a link. Why is this not a link? And that's because we need to actually give it a link. And we do so by coming to the opening tag of this link element, and we say href equals, and here we put whatever link we actually want. And so we can say https:// We can say this is a link to Google. We can save this, and now we see this is actually an underlined hypertext link, hyperlink we can click on, and it will take us to Google. So that is how you will link to external web pages within your document. And maybe you wanted to not have it to where when you click on it, it changes the entire web page that we're on. I mean, of course, you can always right click and say open link in new tab, but we want to maybe default to opening it in a separate tab. And in order to do that, we'll come over here. After the href element, we need to say target equals blank. If we save this, and then if we click here, you can see I'm not going to right click, I'm just going to do a normal click, and there we go. This opens it within a separate tab. So maybe that's something you want to do. If not, you would just simply not include this, and it would change the actual web page you are currently on. Another thing you might want to have within your document would be an image. In order to do so, we would do this with an image tag. So we open a tag, image. And this is an element that actually does not have a closing tag. So if we did this, you can see it doesn't automatically create something like slash image. We don't have that because it doesn't need one. The image element is all one point, therefore it doesn't need a closing tag. And so now we need to actually pick a image that we want to include. So currently we don't have any images in our folder for this project, so we need to come here and find one. So let's come over here and find a picture to include. So let's do a W3 logo. W3 is a website. If you go to w3schools.com, they have a lot of useful information for HTML, JavaScript, and some other things as well. It's very educational if you need to touch up on any HTML skills. So here we found a W3 logo PNG, and this will do just fine for the sake of this tutorial. So we'll save this image as, we can name it whatever we want, but we need to come over here and pick the folder that we are currently operating in. We want to have the same folder that we are currently operating in. We need to have the picture in the same folder. So we'll say W3 logo, save. All right, nice, that's downloading. And now we should actually be able to reference this within our HTML document. So we do so by saying image source, src, equals quotation marks, and right here we will actually type the name of our picture. This is going to be w3 logo.png. Now this is actually just specifying the relative path, the relative file path from where we are. Since we have this in the same folder, we don't need to worry about any like slashes and going into any other files. It's just right here. So that's how we can include this right here. If we say Control S, we see, oh no, we have this huge ugly logo right here. It's taking up a huge portion of the screen. So in order to actually make this not so big, we need to use the width and height attributes that are specific to this image element. So we can do this right here. After the quotation marks of the logo, we can say width equals 300. Now you don't have to put the 300 in quotation marks, but again, that is good practice. We can say height equals maybe 250. And this is in terms of pixels. This is 300 pixels and 200 pixels. If we Control S, now this is much smaller, much better formatted. And now you might be wondering, well, why is this right after our link? Why isn't it below it? It would probably look a little better if it was right below it. And we can do this with what is called a line break element. So we will open a bracket, type BR, And now, if we save this, we have a line break right here, and it puts the image on the next line. A break element is another element that does not need a closing tag, and that's because it is all one thing. You don't need to specify where it will close because it has one instance on the page. And if you hover over some of these elements within VS Code, it will sort of give you an explanation. So if at any point you're not sure what it is that you're working with, you can hover over it and it will give you a pretty good explanation as to what it is. Alright, so that is how we can have an image on a web page. But now, here's something else we might want to do, is we might want to create an image that is a link. It's a pretty specific thing, but it could be useful at certain points. So in order to do this, we would need a new link tag, and that's the A tag. So we say A, and then within this link tag right here, we would put an image. So maybe we will make this. We could actually copy and paste exactly what we have right here. So we will make this image a link. If we take that away from there, put it in between these links, these link tags, and we can Control S this. Currently, it does not link to anywhere because we have not provided it with a link. In order to do so, we will need to use the href attribute. That is how we will specify links for anything. And so now let's find the W3 website. Over here. So this is a W3 website. It has a lot of useful information. So we can Control C this, paste it here, and then if we save that, we can see, if we save this document, then we can come over here and we can click on this, and it will take us there. You can see that it's actually turned into, it changes the cursor to a pointer hand, and you can actually click on it. And again, if we wanted to make it to where it opens in a new tab and not the same tab, we would say target equals blank. If we do this, now we can see we're opening a new tab without having to right click and say open link in new tab. So that is how we can use images, and if we wanted to, we can make an image a link. It's also actually good practice for each image to include in the image an alternate description for the image. So if the image for some reason could not load, then you would like to have a description there describing what it is. And so we would need another attribute here saying alt, and we can specify, say, this is the W3 logo. And hypothetically, if the image were to not load onto the screen, then it would show the description for the image instead of the image itself. One thing that you might find useful would be lists. And so we can specify either an unordered list, an ordered list, or what is called a descriptive list. So an unordered list would be something where, of course, the order does not matter. It's not going to be numbered like 1, 2, 3. It would just be bullet points. So we will do that with this opening tag UL, which is to denote an unordered list. Then to actually put elements in our unordered list, we need to say a tag with li. So li. And now we can see we have an opening li and a closing li. Li stands for list item. So here we might say, eggs. This could be a grocery list. And we would need another element, milk. And, Lunchables. Who knows? Anything. Could be anything you want. And so if we save this, now we can see we have our list right here. It is unordered and it just has bullet points. So that's how we would use an unordered list. You need an opening tag for UL, a closing tag for UL, and then the actual elements themselves. Alright, so maybe we don't want an unordered list. Maybe we want an ordered list, which would be denoted by OL. And we will also need a closing tag for that. And in order to specify the elements in the ordered list, we simply say li, same way as before, eggs. And actually, I'm not going to type all this again. see. All right, so if we save this, we'll see a live update over here thanks to LiveServer, and we can see this is actually ordered now. We didn't have to actually say 1, 2, 3. It automatically put it there because we are using an ordered list. All right, so the last kind of list that we might want to use would be a descriptive list, and this is denoted by a DL tag. We will also need a closing tag for that. And in order to specify these elements, we won't be using the LI tag. We will be using what is a DT tag. So we need DT. We would say eggs. And then what makes this a descriptive list is the fact that each element will have a description following it. So you can say here, and you do this, you describe the element by saying DD. You need a DD tag. So here you might say laid by chickens has many uses. And then you might want another element for Lunchables. And here we will include the description for Lunchables. Great snack for all ages. And then we can save this, and we will see in our web page, I just saved it, and we can see that this is what the descriptive list looks like. We have our eggs and the description for eggs, followed by Lunchables and the description for Lunchables. Alright, so that is how we will use lists within our HTML document. We can use unordered lists, ordered lists, or descriptive lists. Most cases you probably wouldn't use a descriptive list, but it could have its use. Alright, so another thing that we might want to include in our HTML web page would be a table of data. So we would do this by saying table and a tag. And then we will also need a closing tag for that as well. And to actually put elements in the table, we would do so by saying tr and a tag. And so this is to denote a table row. So we can go ahead and indent that. So in order to actually put something in the row, we would need another tag to specify that, and we will use the th tag. Now this is the table header tag. This will usually only be at the beginning of the row. You wouldn't put this in any other rows, and you'll see exactly how we go about doing this in just a second. But here we would say, column 1. And we can go ahead and put 2 more of these in here. We'll just have a 3x3 table. This will be column 2, column 3. So if we save this right now, you'll see what it looks like. We have column 1, 2, and 3 right here. So now we want to add another table row. Like I mentioned, this will be a 3x3 table. And now, instead of using the th element tag, we will use the td element tag. And this is to denote table data, as opposed to a table header. And you will see exactly how it's formatted differently in just a second. So we can say this is item 1, and we will copy and paste this. So item 1, we'll have an item 2, item 3, and if we save this, we will see a live update over here, and we see item 1, item 2, item 3. Now what is different from the table header versus the table data? So the table header we can see is bolded, and that's mainly the only difference right here, but also it is the top of the column as opposed to being in the middle. So then if we want to add even another table row, we would do the same thing we have already, and maybe we would just copy and paste this, and we'll put different names in here. We'll just say thing 1, thing 2, thing 3. If we save this, then we see that this is what our table looks like. So currently it's not very pretty. If we wanted to add a little bit of customization to this, we can do so with a little bit of inline CSS. Normally, like I said before, you would style this with an external file, but for right now, I'll show you how to do it inline. So we will type style equals, and then quotation marks, border. In this case, we're going to use the border attribute, and we'll say 3 pixels, solid black. If we save this, now we see we have a border surrounding our table. If we wanted to change the width of it, we could say 30 Save that, and now we see it is the border is much bigger. We'll save it back. Maybe we want to change this to be red. We'll save that, and now we see we have a red border. So that's another example of some inline CSS to style a table.